Hey guys, I'm Ryan Hoyt. I'm the author of The Forest of Despair and several other books under the publishing name Machete and Quill Press. The Forest of Despair is the first full novel in a series called The Pierced Shadow Archive, which consists of a trilogy as well as a prequel novella that I prefer you would read between books 1 and 2. Um, you can also just read The Forest of Despair as a standalone. It does have an ending. If you don't want to continue on and read the story of the other characters, you're okay to stop at the end of this one. But I promise the story gets so much larger and the world really grows as you read through the other books in the series. I'm going to go ahead and read for you the first chapter of The Forest of Despair. And if you want to check out the series, it is available in Kindle Unlimited, on Kindle ebook, as well as in paperback. And you can get signed copies of the paperback on my website, macheteandquill.com, or ryanhoytauthor.com, if that's easier for you to remember. Chapter 1, Telman Abernath. It wasn't as if Gemma Calvertson were some sort of chosen one, foretold by the prophets, nor did she have any particularly special skills that Abernath knew of, even if she was academically and emotionally intelligent. It was just that she was going to be in the right place at the right time. Oh, and that wasn't by chance either. Abernath had arranged the assignment in secret with Gemma's boss, Garrett Hannon. Sometimes even evil men can sprout consciences, hoping they bear fruit that make up for their insidious past choices. Abernath and Hannon were two of these men looking for redemption. The girl was a tool for making that happen, even if she didn't know it yet. Telman Abernath peered over the banister of the fifth floor of the library, his usual perch as the head of the institution. Unlike many aged libraries, which were dark and dusty affairs, the Royal Library of Epistelle was a grand place, with many windows, including the glass-domed rooftop. There was an open, vaulted space between the mezzanine and the dome above the center of the fifth floor. Thus, natural light could shine upon all corners of the building, especially on the rows of tables that sat on the bottom floor. That was where the girl, Gemma, sat nearly every afternoon as she engaged in her research. It was where she pored over massive tomes about the taxation rates under one king or another, or compared historical accounts of the crown's responses to famines and floods. Maybe the girl did have some kind of superpower after all, if she was able to stay awake through all that. Her boss Hannon even said that Miss Calvertson had it in her to become one of the great historians. That is, as long as she stayed within the narrow lanes afforded to her by the latest laws set by King Davin and his Royal Mystic Committee. So much was off limits these days, so many books burned, so many lies sold as truths, and Abernath himself was, regrettably, a part of it all. Down below, one of Abernath's assistants, handed a note to Gemma. She startled at the interruption, read the note, and turned to look up at Abernath on the fifth floor. Within a minute, the girl had made her way effortlessly to the top of the winding staircase. Abernath opened the half gate that barred unauthorized entry to the library's special collections floor. Up here, there were a number of books that barely made it past the restrictions placed on the Kingdom of Epistelle over the last 25 years, restrictions just older than the girl herself. Some of these books contained limited information on the history and geography of the lands to the north. Others were religious texts of some of the less dangerous faiths that had once been practiced in Epistelle. Even these books had been carefully examined. All had passages redacted, and some were missing entire chapters. Abernath's own hands were responsible for much of it. "I was told you wanted to see me, Mr. Abernath," Gemma said. She had been up to the fifth floor many times since she had started working for the university press. It took a request from someone such as Hannon to even be granted access, let alone browse even partially unsupervised. I don't believe I need anything from the restricted archives today, but thank you. Ah, yes, I know, Miss Calverson. I'll only take a moment of your time. Abernath reached into his deep robe pocket and fiddled with the scroll hidden there. He pulled it halfway out and saw Gemma glance down at it. I understand you are setting off on a big assignment for Mr. Hannon. That's right, Gemma said. I leave this afternoon. Yes, well, my good friend Hannon is very excited about the work he will be undertaking. Something caught Abernath's eye across the corridor and one floor down. A woman stood at a shelf near the fourth floor balcony with a book pulled halfway out of place, but she was obviously focusing her attention elsewhere, even if her eyes were not pointed up at Abernath or Gemma. What a fool I am, standing here in the open while I incriminate the girl, Abernath thought. They're already onto me, and onto her, and I haven't even given her the scroll. Is there something wrong, Mr. Abernath? Gemma asked. Abernath shook off his thoughts, but the expression on his face was grave. He tried to force a smile as he shoved the scroll back down into his pocket, then wiped his brow with an empty hand. No, I'm sorry. An old man's mind isn't always the sharpest, even when surrounded by a lifetime of books. I just wanted to wish you good luck on your journey, and we look forward to seeing you take up your favorite seat in the study room when you're back. Oh, okay. Thanks, Mr. Abernath. I should be seeing you again in a couple of weeks. Take care. The girl flashed a genuine smile at the old librarian, then went back through the gate and down the stairs to where her books awaited her. Abernath looked back down to the fourth floor, but the strange woman was gone, and the book she'd been touching was still halfway out of its place on the shelf. The slight creak of the gate sounded, and Abernath turned toward it. I'm looking for the section on treason against the crown, the woman said. Abernath was taken aback. How could the Royal Mystic Committee know about the plan? I'm sorry, but you must have a referral to be up here, Abernath said. Despite his years as the head of the library, he had never developed a voice of authority. I think you know my commander, don't you, Mr. Abernath? The woman walked slowly toward the librarian as he stepped backward. I believe you know of Sir Marin Alamon and the Royal Mystic Committee. Is that enough of a referral? There must be a mistake. We do not have any books of interest to you here. Abernath's hand crept back into his robe pocket as he backed into the banister. He could just make out Gemma down below, gathering her materials and preparing to leave. I didn't say anything about a book, you fool. It's a scroll I'm looking for. The woman reached under her coat and pulled out a throwing dagger. At the same time, Abernath pulled his hand out of his robe. The scroll in his possession wielded much more power than the woman's weapon. He reached over the railing and dropped it at the same moment the woman released the dagger. Abernath slumped down against the banister, blade protruding from his left eye, as the scroll plummeted down through the sunlit rotunda. With his one remaining eye, Abernath watched as the rolled-up parchment landed on the marble floor just behind Gemma Calvertson. The girl did not seem to notice. Abernath's mission appeared to have failed. The heavy double doors on the first floor flew open. An unnatural gust of wind stormed the library. Books flew off shelves, papers scattered from the study tables, and patrons jumped to their feet in surprise. Abernath noticed that his attacker seemed to forget about him, and he managed to push away from her to get a better look. He heard the sounds before he saw what made them. From the front door, from the unlit fireplaces throughout the building, and crashing through the domed windows above. Thousands of pigeons swooped in and circled the library frantically. Abernath could just make out a figure emerging from among birds at the front entrance. It was a strikingly tall man. What sorcery is this, Abernath? The woman from the committee slammed her boot down onto the librarian's left kneecap. Abernath cried out in pain. His attacker lifted her foot and was about to hammer it down on the same spot once again when she was pushed off balance by a swarm of pigeons. She screamed as she fell on the floor next to Abernath and flailed her arms and legs at the birds. Abernath looked back down to where Gemma was collecting her scattered papers from the floor. In the pile, unbeknownst to the girl, was the scroll. Abernath watched as Gemma hastily shoved everything into her bag. As she rose, ready to flee, the mysterious tall man set his hand on Gemma's shoulder and appeared to speak a few words. The girl froze for a moment before walking calmly out the front doors of the library. The blood was overtaking Abernath's vision when he spotted the tall man again, now just a few feet away at the top of the stairs. Up close, Abernath could clearly see his features and chuckled, perhaps too joyously for a man in the last moments of his life. The newcomer was hairless, but for the comically large handlebar mustache protruding from his face. He was dressed in a fine suit. He was, Abernath recognized, a priest of the Solendaron. And if a clergyman of one of the long outlawed religions was making such a bold attack in capital city, then perhaps redemption truly was close. Abernath's remaining eye closed for good, but his other senses still worked for a few more moments. He heard the woman screaming, felt the wind created by the birds flying all around. And then the screams again, seemingly descending through the air to the marble floor below. He felt a warm hand on his shoulder, and a man's voice spoke softly to him. "The girl will succeed," the priest of Solendaron said to Abernath as the librarian took his final breath. "You may rest now, my friend, for the girl will succeed." All right, well, that was chapter 1 of The Forest of Despair by me, Ryan Hoyt. Again, it's out on Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, or paperback. You can get the paperback from Amazon or anywhere else online that sells books. And you can also get signed copies of these books on my website, macheteandquill.com. And the entire series is out now, all 4 books. And at live events, I do sell an omnibus edition where it's all in one giant volume, about 930 pages with really small text. But yeah, all the books are available individually, and there is a boxed set ebook also available on Kindle and Kindle Unlimited. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and keep following my channel for more updates. Follow me on facebook.com/Ryan Hoyt author, and my website, macheteandquill.com, where you can sign up for my newsletter or buy signed copies of all of my books. I write horror and fantasy books, and this is my fantasy series, The Pierced Shadow Archive. Thank you so much for listening to Chapter 1 of The Forest of Despair. Take care.